This is textbook authoritarian takeover 101.
I knew I should have taken that class. And not majored in submissive liberal crying 101.
Let's be honest. Rachel Maddow doesn't exactly do calm, especially when Donald Trump's name comes up. Her whole style is fiery and intense, filled with dramatic speeches and bold claims. She's known for going all in on political theories that even some diehard partisans find a bit much. Some of the most shocking accusations in recent years, they've come straight from her MSNBC set, like she's hosting a real-life political drama.
Thriller.
4 hours of Joe Scarborough shouldn't be allowed in this country. and then like Rachel Maddow, like it's schizophrenic at times. Like, yeah, I do think there should be some semblance of an idea that, look, they're kicking progressive ass right now. And if progressives don't organize their media, their think tanks and all that, it's going to continue to happen. It's chaos.
Rachel Maddow has always been known for her intense delivery, especially when former President Donald Trump is involved. Her segments often sound less like news and more like dramatic performances. But recently, things took an unexpected turn. For the first time in a long while, someone from her own political side called her out, and it wasn't just anyone. It was Jon Stewart, the former host of The Daily Show, a longtime voice in liberal media. And his comments, they shook the internet. Stewart didn't go easy on Maddow. He wasn't just cracking jokes for laughs. He laid out a serious and scathing critique that many people feel was long overdue. Instead of staying quiet or tiptoeing around it, Stewart openly criticized not just Maddow, but also MSNBC as a whole. But it was his comments about Maddow in particular that had everyone talking. He described her show as chaotic and disjointed. More than that, he said it felt like she was having a one-sided conversation with herself, imagining political threats that don't exist, reacting emotionally to them, and turning every normal political action into something sinister. According to Stewart, her show doesn't feel like a news program anymore. It feels like a dramatic solo act, like she's acting out a political thriller all by herself, complete with her own characters, plot twists, and cliffhangers. Stewart pointed out that journalism is supposed to be a way to communicate, to inform people and connect with the audience. But with Maddow, he said it's become a monologue with no room for pushback, reflection, or reality checks. Viewers aren't watching a news report. They're watching someone act out their inner thoughts on national TV. And for many, that performance has gone too far. The tipping point for Stewart was Maddow's reaction to Trump legally replacing 17 federal judges. This was a routine political action, something every president is allowed to do. But instead of explaining it calmly, Maddow painted it like the beginning of a dictatorship. She didn't treat it as a standard legal move. She made it sound like the U.S. Constitution was under attack. She said it was the start of a strongman takeover, claiming that the U.S. was slipping into authoritarianism. That kind of reaction, Stewart argued, isn't thoughtful analysis, it's fear-mongering. It's designed to stir panic, not provide understanding. And he's not the only one who feels that way. If you've watched Maddow over the years, this isn't anything new. She's made a habit of turning every political move she doesn't like into a five-alarm fire. Whether it's a press conference, a policy decision, or a judge being fired, she finds a way to make it seem like the end of American democracy is near. But this kind of extreme framing doesn't inform, it exhausts.
This is textbook authoritarian takeover 101.
I knew I should have taken that class. And not majored in submissive liberal crying 101.
When Stewart called her show schizophrenic, he wasn't just being mean. He was pointing out how confusing and emotionally overwhelming it can be. Maddow plays every role in her own imaginary crisis. The narrator, the alarmed citizen, and the hero saving the day. It's a never-ending loop of tension with no real resolution, and people are beginning to notice. Viewers aren't tuning in to learn anymore. Many are just watching for the drama. while others are switching off entirely. Maddow's audience is shrinking, and her influence is starting to wane. And when someone like Jon Stewart, who used to be considered part of the same media family, calls her out, it makes people stop and think. One of Maddow's most quoted lines during a recent episode was about Americans needing to wake up and be scrappy and fight back like pirates. She wasn't encouraging political engagement, she was rallying for emotional rebellion. It sounded less like news and more like a call to arms. And for many viewers, it was just too much. It's not just the words she uses, it's the tone. Every segment feels like a countdown to disaster. According to her, democracy is always on the brink, fascism is around the corner, and everything we know is about to collapse. Why? Because the opposing party won an election. That's not journalism. That's theatrical panic. Instead of helping people understand what's happening, this kind of approach drives them away. It turns viewers off from the political process. It turns every issue into a crisis, and eventually people stop listening. Because when everything is an emergency, nothing feels urgent anymore. More importantly, this kind of over-the-top storytelling doesn't just hurt her ratings, it hurts her political side. It makes moderate or undecided voters feel alienated. It pushes them away from the Democratic Party because it makes the whole movement look unhinged. People don't want to be scared into voting. They want honest explanations, thoughtful solutions, and real leadership. Maddow's emotional outbursts, constant warnings, and dramatic pauses aren't giving people clarity. They're giving them anxiety. And the more she turns up the volume, the more people are walking away from the screen. So when Jon Stewart finally spoke out, it wasn't just a celebrity roasting a fellow media figure. It was a wake-up call, a reminder that news should enlighten, not frighten, that people deserve facts, not theatrics, and that even within your own side, there's a limit to how much drama people will tolerate before they start looking for the exit.
A lot of our fellow Americans say we shouldn't. See, what they really don't want is for those tens of millions of Americans to wake up tomorrow feeling scrappy as hell. And so now we can work full-time on being fricking pirates, on being a thorn in the side to anyone who now intends to try to turn this country into some tin pot tyranny. Hope you are feeling scrappy. Hope you are tapping into your inner pirate energy. Because it is one thing to be a defender of the realm. It is another thing to be in opposition. And opposition can be a lot of things. It can be dangerous. It can also be fun. It would have been nice to win the election. Did. Okay. Time to save the
Now this is where things take an unexpected turn. If you've ever wondered when someone from Rachel Maddow's own side would finally speak up and say, okay, this is getting out of hand, that moment has finally arrived. And surprisingly, it came from none other than Jon Stewart. Yes, the same Jon Stewart known for his sharp wit and deep commentary. This wasn't just a few lighthearted jokes or casual criticism. Stewart came in hot, delivering a brutal and honest take that people across the political spectrum couldn't help but notice. His comments were so blunt and direct that many viewers found themselves rewinding to hear it again. It was the kind of critique that doesn't happen often from someone considered to be on the same team. Stewart didn't just focus on Maddow either. He called out MSNBC as a whole, including Joe Scarborough, but his most pointed words were clearly aimed at Maddow herself. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He said what many people had been thinking for a long time, but were afraid to say out loud. He described Maddow's show as schizophrenic, not just in the sense that it's disorganized, but that it feels like she's in her own little world. Stewart pointed out that Maddow often builds imaginary threats, reacts to them as if they're real, and creates drama from things that don't deserve it. According to him, it feels less like journalism and more like a one-woman play where she's debating herself in an echo chamber, hyped up on caffeine and late-night anxiety. Television is supposed to be a way to communicate and connect with viewers, but in Maddow's case, Stewart said it doesn't feel like a two-way conversation at all. It feels like you're just overhearing someone's private thoughts. Except those thoughts are being broadcast to millions of people without any challenge or correction. The latest example that set Stewart off? Maddow's reaction to Trump, firing 17 judges. It was a completely legal move, something any president has the authority to do. But instead of explaining that calmly, Maddow acted like it was the beginning of a dictatorship. She didn't say, "This is normal political procedure." Instead, she made it sound like the Constitution was being torn to shreds. To her, a legal act became a symbol of fascism knocking on America's front door. Let's be real. This isn't the first time Maddow has done this. She has a history of turning regular political decisions into scenes from a horror movie. If a Republican breathes wrong, she spins it into a warning sign for the end of democracy. Watching her show feels like you're always 5 minutes away from an apocalypse, and that kind of fear-mongering is starting to wear people out. Stewart wasn't the only one calling it out. Others from the same political side, like Jen Psaki and Bill Maher, are also starting to criticize the way Maddow and her network handle things. These aren't outsiders throwing stones. These are major voices from within the democratic world. When even your own allies are telling you to calm down, that's a serious red flag.
Boring here for a second, but just getting very real. We now are just another one in the list of countries that has decided to, hey, what the heck? Let's try the strongman thing. There are many more countries in the world governed by that kind of a system than there are governed by ours. We are the only 248-year-old multiracial, pluralistic democracy in the world. And shall we keep it?
And the truth is, people are tired. Tired of every political loss being framed as the collapse of the nation. Tired of constant panic. Voters don't want to be scared into caring. They want real information, real solutions, and some sense of stability. MSNBC, and Maddow in particular, haven't been giving them that. Instead of focusing on what Democrats can actually offer, new ideas, policy plans, they've been obsessed with Trump. Every night, it's the same routine. Take a Trump clip, cut it out of context.
Democrats just lost everything. They control nothing. They control, they don't control the House, they don't control the Senate, they don't control the White House, and they don't control the Supreme Court. So now is the time to break some, and break some China.
They do control.
Build an outrageous narrative around it and stir up viewers with dramatic music and lighting. But that doesn't solve anything. It might get ratings and online clicks, but it's not helping voters understand what's really going on. It's exhausting to watch, and people are starting to see through it. What's worse is that Maddow often ignores the real problems facing everyday Americans. While people struggle with rent, food prices, and inflation, Maddow sits in a fancy...
She is stomach-turning, isn't she? It could be... You're in danger. What are you going to do with your 10 houses and your tens of millions? My God, you better start preparing. You should start getting the medication kits and the food right now. Store away. Trump is coming for you, Rachel. Jeez, could be fun. Could be fun. Oh, yeah. Who would ever know what it's like for MSNBC to be in the opposition? Oh, wait. Russia.
Studio with her coffee, talking about Trump like it's still 2016. She's not the one getting hit with overdraft fees or worried about how to afford groceries. And she's not talking about the people or policies that might actually be responsible for the current economic mess. Why not? Because pointing fingers at the actual problems might upset her audience, and worse, it might hurt her paycheck. Her entire career has become built on outrage.
But the "this is all fascist" argument has become almost a reflex for the left.
Donald Trump promised to be a dictator on day one, and he's carried that forward through the entire week.
5 days into this administration, the abuse is already rampant.
On a fascism scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being peak fascism, how would you rate Trump's first week?
And as long as she keeps blaming Trump for everything, the money keeps rolling in. Jon Stewart laid it all out. Just because Republicans are winning elections and holding office doesn't mean America is under a fascist regime. Power wasn't stolen. It was earned through legal votes through the same democratic process Maddow claims to defend. Calling that process fascism doesn't protect democracy. It insults it. when every Republican victory is treated like a
I would say it's not fascism. Do I not understand what fascism is? Republicans control the House, the Senate, the executive, and the judiciary.
crisis, the word fascism loses its meaning. Instead of protecting democracy, Maddow and others like her are watering down the seriousness of real threats by turning every moment into a doomsday prediction. People are finally
We know your trick, Madam Pirate. When you're in the opposition, your nobility in your efforts to save the country, you fucking lie. That's what you do. You lie every day. And then you play the victim. What a ridiculous person. She is such a great example of what happens to these media people.
noticing the pattern, and they're done with it. They don't want to be yelled at, panicked, or manipulated. They want clarity, honesty, and a little peace. But Maddow's show isn't offering that. It's offering fear, wrapped in drama night after night. And if Jon Stewart, someone who once stood beside voices like hers, is calling it out, maybe it's time the rest of us start listening.
Rachel Maddow doesn't know any of that. She doesn't know any of that. She's made so much money. She's lost her tether to real people.